So, video games. I'm a fan of them, and I ended up playing a lot last year, as you do. So I think it would be fun to kind of list them, chronicle them, whatever you want to call this. Give them a short review and like a little rating, so that's what I'm gonna do. Hooray! Gear for me video game wise, because I finally got a PlayStation 4. So I got to check out a bunch of new games. Or just better versions of games I could have gotten on Switch. Anyways, that doesn't really matter. I played a lot on all the things I had except 3DS. Whoops. So, yeah, on with the games. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a breath of fresh air for the series. Look how funny. And this is one of the few games I say is actually worth its $60 price tag. Which is why I got it for $20 during Black Friday. You've probably already heard everyone's go into the hundreds of millions of reasons why this game is great, and they're all true. So I don't really have much to add to the conversation, but I do recommend everyone play it at some point. However, playing it so close to the new game coming out makes me very apathetic to Tears of the Kingdom. That sounds more like a me problem, though, so... Henry Stickmin is a series of games that were released on Newgrounds back in the day. Games like Fleeing the Complex and Escaping the Prison, those were fun. This Steam release not only helps the series not dying with Flash, but it also finishes the story, because technically the story was incomplete, except... it just kind of depends on how you look at it. But it finishes the story with a new game, completing the mission. You actually get to pick and choose which story you get based on which endings of infiltrating the airship and escaping the complex you got. And if you got multiple, you can just pick and choose from those, and each combination gets its own story, which is really cool. And with things like achievements and profiles for every character ever, even most of the background joke ones, it's an enjoyable time. I'm a bit torn on the $15 price tag, but with all the small edits they did to avoid copyright issues, and by small, I mean they would literally just change like one note of a song, and like it's fine. So, take that how you will. But honestly, the entirety of completing the mission, I think makes it worthwhile. This is the start of the modern Kirby series gameplay, and it's fun. I didn't get to try the multiplayer. I've heard that's pretty good. Well, I think it's a good game. I think the 3DS games are significantly better and refine this series a lot more. But this one's still good, and I'm looking forward to that remake. Apparently there's 2 new powers this time. Woohoo! WarioWare Smooth's Moves is the second Wario game I've played after Gold. The series is weird. New micro games with different objectives being thrown at you every second. This game pushes the frantic tone of the series much further, as every game you get has to be controlled with a different control scheme that requires you to hold the Wii Remote in a different way. It's a lot of fun, as WarioWare usually is, and it's definitely worth picking up. Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival is a bad game. Sonic Colors Ultimate is a port of a Wii game, and sadly, Sega didn't give it enough time in the oven, and they managed to ruin a port of a Wii game. How do you even do that? I didn't run into any of the game-breaking glitches, just some crashes, but even after the update, the game still looks worse than the Wii version, because they decided to hide the 2010 graphics by pushing the bloom up to an obnoxious degree. Sonic Colors is a good game on the Wii, and while it's not bad here, it's ultimately better for you to play the Wii original. God, I gotta stop writing. I love Little Big Planet, and I definitely love this game. It's gorgeous, got so many creative spaces, levels, gimmicks. So many people say this game is similar to Mario 3D World, But I'd say it's 3D World, but better. Yes, 3D World does have good level design, but this has good level design while also having gorgeous art design and an actual theme. It also has heaps of personality that 3D World kind of lacks. Also, the actors they got to bring in add so much charm to the game. It's so cute and inviting. I love everything about it. But they didn't get Stephen Fry in to be the narrator, so this game gets a 0 out of 10, worst game ever. Joking. Even though they should have gotten Stephen Fry, I'm not actually judging it like that. This game is absolutely amazing, and it's on PC. Go play it. Mad Rat Dead is a rhythm game you probably haven't heard about unless you listen to mashups. But you definitely need to play it. You play as a rat who spent his whole life stuck in a cage. But he gets the chance to relive his last day on Earth thanks to the rat god. Also, his heart starts talking to him. The game ends up being pretty deep and even kind of heart-wrenching at points of the story. And I absolutely love it. With great music, a great story, and overall fun gameplay, I cannot recommend this game enough. Bowser's Fury is an extra game that's included in the Switch port of 3D World. Some might say it's the main reason to get the game. Don't let them fool you. Bowser's Fury is super short. It's only like 5 to 7 hours, which isn't much for 3D Mario standards. That being said, it takes the mechanics of 3D World and puts it into a Mario Odyssey type of open map, letting you explore everything wherever you want. It also brings a lot of charm to the main game, which is kind of missed for me. If it was sold on its own, it might be a hard sell, but as an inclusion in 3D World, it's two great games. Yes, despite the bashing I did on 3D World a bit ago, I do think it's a good game. It's just kind of bland. Bowser's Fury isn't. It's got like a nice little lakeside theme. I like it, but I don't want to get into that now. Transformers Devastation is a Platinum Games game, and it's the first one I've ever played, because if anybody watched me play, they just immediately get it. Well, if I played something like Bayonetta, the respect for me would greatly diminish. This game is great visually. Its aesthetics are based on Generation 1, which to this day I consider to be the most iconic iteration of Transformers. Gameplay-wise, it's a spectacle fighter. I'm not calling it character action game, because that's boring, like DMC. You can choose your character, meaning for a short bit, I had trouble getting into the game as you start as Optimus Prime, who moves slow, Bumblebee, who moves kinda fast, and then you get to Sideswipe, who I naturally went with because his movement is the fastest. Combat is basically what you'd expect, except you can change into your car form and for different types of combos. I like that. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. But I don't know how easy it would be to sell to, like, non-Transformers fans. Either way, it's a fun game, and it's sad it got delisted because the rights expired. Maybe Hasbro can get this one on newer consoles, possibly, perhaps? Banana Mania is a compilation of content from Super Monkey Balls 1, 2, and Deluxe, and I've never played those games, so I can't say how well those old games hold up, but I will say, this game is great. There's something so satisfying, it's hard to explain. It's also hard, really hard. If you like a challenge, this is the game for you. Sorry I don't have much to say. Again, people talk about why this game's so good. But hey, it's good, and I enjoyed it. That's all that matters. There was a lot of hoopla about this game going into its release, and it's warranted. And this might be a bit of a controversial take, but I think this might be the best game of 2022. At least, it's a contender. More of a contender than Genshin Impact. That game came out in 2020. Why was it in the running for the 2022 Game of the Year? What? But at launch, it did have several bugs that happily got fixed. And unlike most games that are like that on day one, but actually didn't have any content and it was just the bugs. Why is this a common thing for game development? This one actually felt great to play at launch. And had enough content at launch. So, you know, the bugs kind of were excusable. Also, they fixed them pretty fast, so I wish they weren't there at launch, but it's kind of fine. On to the game's own merits. This is a total reinvention of the LEGO game formula, but still has the basic gameplay mechanics from the old game, so it's still a collectathon. There are some issues, like how the game picks some weird moments to turn into full levels, and especially on how there's no way to replay the story mode after you've beaten it outside of starting a new save file. I would also like to say the starship mechanic was underutilized. I'd like to say that, but they actually added like 6 more of them. Some of them were actually advertised pre-release, so oops, but it's fine. And their additions actually rounded up the Kyber Crystal amounts to 1,200, 1,200. Oh, there's a lot of collectibles in this game. It's not perfect, but it's definitely a great new direction for the series, and it's something different for once. I can't wait to see what they do next. If you're wondering full thoughts, I'll make a full video eventually. Ghostbusters is a tie-in to the 2016 movie, also known as Answer the Call, also known as the one with the girls, and it's not bad, it's just monotonous. It's boring, but hey, if you get a character up to level 5, you can unlock the new outfit for them. Fun? To be honest, just make the game a little bit more frantic, give the player more movement options, and maybe expand the roster to include every Ghostbuster, you know, like the OG, the 2016 cast, the Afterlife cast, maybe even Extreme Ghostbusters, who knows, this is just hypothetical, and then you'd have a fun game. I know that's basically saying, just make a different game and it would be good. Because that is what I'm saying. It's Mega Man, but worse. I feel like most people hyped up the game too much, and when it came out and kind of was the most mediocre and boring thing ever, people claimed it was the worst game of all time. With that being said, is Mighty No. 9 a good game? No! I did have fun with it at a couple points. I just feel it's like all the ingredients are there for you to bake a cake, and then they just didn't mix properly. Like a cake you burned in the oven. Why is my mind on cake? Another release of Pac-Man shouldn't be interesting, but this grabbed my attention because Namco actually decided to put marketing money behind it. This game is great. I could easily recommend it to anyone, as it's got a surprising amount of variety. Like, out of the 16 games in the collection, some of them are the classic Maze stuff, and several of them are like either remixes of the Maze stuff or just their own original thing, which is pretty cool. I think the games I've gotten the most out of is Pac-Mania, Battle Royale, 256, and Arrangement, the arcade version, because Arrangement is worth the price of admission alone. That didn't get re-released often because there was a console version that was released on a PSP collection, and that kind of was the game that got re-released for a while. Speaking of which, that console version is also included here, which is good, so now you got both of them. Battle Royale is great for multiplayer. It was a multiplayer arcade game after all. And 256, ironically, is also pretty good for multiplayer. It's a great collection and definitely worth the price. Even if the $10 price hike on physical Switch copies is kind of bull, I'm still angry about that, because I bought my physical copy. Why was it $30 extra? Why was it $10 extra dollars? Team Sonic Race is using the same gameplay as the Sega All-Star series. It's even done by the same developers, and it plays just as well as those games. And the use of the Wisp powers are cool. But something doesn't exactly click. Like, there's a story mode, which the other games didn't have, but it doesn't actually, really stand out compared to All-Star Transforms campaign. You have so many things to do in that campaign. While you do get some variety here, you just mostly do races. Honestly, even though it is called Sonic and All-Stars Racing, the All-Stars part, I hoped it stand out as a competitor to Mario Kart, as it brought a lot of variety and Sega fan service. This game kind of doesn't do that. It's good, it looks beautiful, but I'd say you should just play Transformed instead. A short hike is a short game. You play as this bird kid as you try to reach the top of the mountain to get good cell reception. That's right, you're playing as a member of Gen Z. It's okay, I'm Gen Z, I can make that joke. This game is good and worth it if you ask me. I got it for like $3 during a sale, so of course I'd say that. It's well made, it has a nice soundtrack. That's about it. It is fun for one playthrough. I loved the original Pac-Man world when I played the PS3 re-release of it. But it definitely had issues, mainly the bosses. Why were the bosses like that? Thankfully, the remake changes the bosses by just simply improving them and just replacing one of them. It also adds some quality of life improvements, like adding tracking for the collectibles, and adding a new ending for 100%, and actually giving the player a chance to unlock the magic key, which was apparently in the original, but I never got it in the original because I didn't know it existed, because you unlock it when you get to 1,000,000 points. Why did you do that? It's virtually impossible in the original. It's a lot easier to get in this version because they made it like they just lowered the point score to make it the one number that Namco always references. This game's really fun. I love it. I love it to bits. A little bit of the janky charm is gone from the original, because honestly the PS1 animations did have a lot of charm, and honestly the PS1 charm not being there is worth it to have a version of this game that is just amazing. Like, this is the definitive way to play the game. I love Mega Man, but I've never played the Mega Man X series, so this collection is a good way for me to get myself acquainted with this branch of the franchise. Mega Man X1 is great. It's a fun evolution of classic Mega Man. Mega Man X2 takes the few bad parts from the first game and fixes them, but scales back a lot of the cool bits from the first game, and they added a lot more of the annoying bits. X3 fixes the problem X2 had, but adds more issues. Why are you doing this? And X4 is an improvement. Yeah, X4 is good, but I think X1 is better. Also, with the inclusion of the special OVA that was included in the PSP remake of the first game, yeah, this is cool. The collection is fine, although I would have liked the inclusion of previously mentioned PSP port, because that just seems like a cool bonus. Who doesn't love Homestar Runner? It's an internet classic, and no surprise, Telltale decided to make an episodic adventure game out of it. But it's the same kind of adventure game like Sam and Max and all the older Telltale games, and also all the LucasArts games. So instead of it being The Walking Dead, it's an actual point-and-click game. I do think fans of Homestar Runner should check it out. There's a lot of moments I like. I just don't think the humor is as good as the web show. Mainly because I think Homestar Runner's humor is just pretty absurd overall. Like, it's hard to have that kind of absurd humor when you're doing logic puzzles. It's still funny, don't get me wrong. It's just like a different kind of funny from the normal Homestar Runner stuff. My favorite episode of the game, though, is episode 4, Danger-esque 3, in case you were wondering. Freedom Planet is a Sonic fan game with the serial numbers ripped off and replaced with new ones. I remember a lot of people calling it a masterpiece, and that's a bit overambitious. I definitely liked it more on my second playthrough as Carol. As my first, I played as Lilac. Lilac felt like Sonic, but without a lot of several of the aspects that make Sonic fun to control and a lot more. Carol's a lot more fun to play. The game is good, and I'd recommend it if you want more classic Sonic-esque gameplay. But I would not say it's like a must-play. It's a fine game. Sonic Frontiers is... I love this game. I genuinely love this game. There's so much I could say about it that even if I tried to state what I loved about it here, this entire video would just be a video about Sonic Frontiers. It's not perfect. Definitely not perfect. But it's worth your time to play. It's really good. The fishing minigame alone makes this a 9 out of 10. I made a full video about Sonic 4 last year, and I'd say go watch that for my full thoughts. But in short, episode 1 sucks, episode 2 is fine. Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit is a remake of the Game Gear game of the same name. But this is in the style of a Genesis game. And it's great. It basically takes the aesthetics of the original and like a few mechanics here and there and basically makes a new game out of it. And that's what I think a remake should do. If the game you're remaking is already considered great, which I do actually consider Triple Trouble to be a pretty good game, it doesn't really need any fixing. So a remake of it should just play around with the concept and have some fun with it. Do new things. Who cares? I've heard some say this is on the same level as an official game. I wouldn't say that, but it is really close to being on the level as one of them. Just like a hair short of feeling official. DK64 is the N64 game that has too many things. No joke, out of all the 8 levels, 2 of them are designed with the game's limitations, and those 2 are Creepy Castle and the penultimate level. What? Why? 6 levels. That you had to... Legitimately, 6 of the levels feels like they were designed for a different game that did not have all the limitations DK64 put on itself. The problem is not the number of collectibles in DK64. The problem is the game pisses you about. There's so many videos on the internet that go into why the game is a mess. Despite all that, and despite the rant I just went on, I cannot bring myself to call it bad. I did have fun at points, and it definitely has some qualities to it. It's impressive looking for an N64 game. Like, it looks like what somebody nowadays would make to replicate the N64 thing. It looks really clean. There's a lot of charm, the music's good, the character animations are really good. This game definitely needs a remake to cut down on all its nonsense. Other than that, it's a fine game. And hey, now that I've beaten it, I can now finally say trans rights. Yoshi's Woolly World is a Wii U game made by the same devs as Kirby's Epic Yarn. It's basically a regular Yoshi game, but it detaches itself from the SNES game to do its own thing, unlike Island DS and Yoshi's New Island. That being said, it does occasionally use ideas from the SNES games, and sometimes they're really clever. Sometimes I kinda wish they just did their own thing. Despite that, this game is great, and I'd recommend you play it. It's probably one of the best Yoshi games, and it is a shame it is not on the Switch. I played it on Wii U. I also have the 3DS version, both of which are good versions. The 3DS version lets you customize your Yoshi. Please port this to Switch. I'm probably not gonna buy it unless you include the character creation stuff again, because then I'd definitely buy it. But people need to play this. And that's all. I don't really have a final thesis on this. I just thought it would be fun to do for a bit of. Yeah.